So you've decided to write a book. Congratulations. You've had this idea brewing in your head for a long time and you decided you're going to do it. You're going to write that story. Well, one of the most exciting things about starting a story is deciding on all the qualities of your main character. So if you want to have a compelling, unforgettable main character, I'm going to give you a few things to think about when you're creating him or her. Your main character needs to be well-rounded and relatable. Well, what does that mean? Here's a few things to think about. What makes your character different from other people? What makes your character stand out from others? What is a quirk about that character? So a few examples of a quirk or something unique about a character would be maybe your character has an irrational fear. An example of this would be Indiana Jones. He had an irrational fear of snakes. Maybe your main character has a good sense of humor. Die Hard movies and John McClane comes to mind. No matter what situation he was in, he always found humor in it. Bravery. I think of Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games series. She was incredibly brave, and she also had an unusual skill with her bow and arrow. Unusual skill is also another aspect to consider having for your main character. In Sweet Home Alabama, the ex-husband, well, actually they're still married, but he is uncouth, he is a big mouth, he drinks a lot, he's argumentative, he's sexy, he's a lot of things, but I think it's really cool that he's also a glass blower. That is a unique thing. How many people do you know are glass blowers? So you just add something extra or unique or special about your main character is a great way to go. How can you make your character relatable? One way of making them relatable is making them vulnerable, giving them a handicap, or making them an underdog. We always relate to that as readers. So a good way to think about this is a lot of characters and stories start with a misguided belief, something that isn't really true, but in their mind, they truly believe this. Some common ones would be, I'm unlovable. So the main character thinks that at the beginning of the story, but then by the end of the story, they do fall in love and they find out they are lovable. Another one would be trust no one. You see that as a misguided belief in a lot of characters. They don't trust anyone. Well, by the end of the story, they have to trust someone, so they change by the end. Another one is don't rock the boat. You know, someone who never wants to cause any problems, who wants everything to go smoothly. Well, by the end, they finally have to rock the boat. So that just makes, it's called a character arc, where a character is changing by the end of the story. An example to me of someone who doesn't change in the story very much and therefore doesn't make the story as good is Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Rey is the main character, and right from the beginning, she's living on her own, being a total badass. And she has to fly. She's like this amazing pilot. She scrounges for food. She's so athletic. She's all these amazing things. And she's still those amazing things by the end of the movie. So that's just an example of someone who doesn't change throughout the movie, who's just a badass the entire book. So therefore, to me, it doesn't make the overall story as appealing. You want to have a character that, as a reader, as a moviegoer, you can get behind and root for them. I'm just giving you a few things to consider when building a character. So just to recap, when you create your character, you want to make something about them different or unique. So some questions to consider. Does your character have any secrets or lies? Does your character have an interesting job? Does your character have underdog qualities? Is he or she vulnerable? Does he or she have a handicap? Does she have a misguided belief? something that we know isn't true, but by the end of the story, she understands. Does your main character have fears, doubts, or insecurities? It's a good idea to consider because it makes them more relatable. What type of lifestyle and background does your character have? Do they possess an unusual skill? Are they beautiful? Are they ugly? Are they sexy? Are they funny? Are they happier being alone? Are they happier being with a group? What type of values does your character have? So consider every aspect of his or her personality and how do you want them to change throughout the story? There are so many ways and things to consider when making a great character, but I'm going to narrow it down to 3 because I think it can get just overwhelming. So number 1, give your character a misguided belief, something that he or she believes that by the end of the story, he believes otherwise. Number 2, give your character a quirk or a flaw. Make your character vulnerable. So this vulnerability can be physical, spiritual, emotional, psychological. There are really so many other things to consider when building your character, but I narrowed it down to 3 things because I think we can get caught up in overwhelm when we are creating our characters and wanting to make a fantastic story. If there's any other questions you have about developing a fantastic main character, drop me a line. And if you'd like to see more videos about writing and the aspects of good storytelling, give me a thumbs up. Thank you.